Well, good morning and welcome to the Damon Speech Contest 2019. Public speaking, also known as rhetoric, has a long history at this school. This contest was founded by the Reverend Samuel Damon, a Punahou trustee. Now, he had a son named Willie Damon, who was the best speaker in his graduating class. He won the rhetoric competition in the year 1872. Now, unfortunately, 4 years after Willie graduated from Punahou, he died of typhoid fever. That was something that they didn't have antibiotics in those days, so if you got typhoid fever, it was very, very serious. Today, you could be cured. But he died after he graduated, and so his father, who was very grief-stricken, donated a sum of money to the school in his son's honor, and that's the origin of the speech contest. Of course, this contest has gone through a lot of changes over 142 years, as you can imagine. In the beginning, for example, the speakers up there, they didn't write their own speeches. Instead, they would memorize pieces from books, from plays, or from poetry, and they would recite them to the audience in a very melodramatic fashion while violins or pianos played in the background. However, in 1921, the contest took the form it has today, with the speakers writing their own pieces and no pianos or violins playing in the background. Now, the 8 contestants sitting up here on stage have a lot of history to live up to, but I'm confident of their speaking ability because each is already a winner. Just by getting into the finals, these 8 people rank as the top 2% of the speakers in your graduating class. I'd like to read their names. Let's hold the applause to the last name. From your left, Hie Louis, Evan Foster, Chloe DeVere, Ryan Blakeney, Eleanor Cowell, Selena Lim, Taylor Ogata, and Skylar Chang. Let's give them a round of applause. Now, we have 7 judges in the hall this morning, including 2 members of the Academy Speech and Debate team right there, and we've got retired teachers, Mrs. Power and Mr. Woody, and there's Mrs. Nelson up there, and there's also Mr. Aldrich and Mrs. Lau, and I may have forgotten somebody, but that may total up to 7. And each of them is going to be awarding a first, a second, and a third place finish. Now, the contest is decided on points, and when a judge gives a first place, it's worth 16 points, a second place is worth 11, and a third place is worth 7 points. So when the contest is over, we'll pause for a few minutes while Mrs. Nakata and I add up all the points, and then I will announce the bronze, silver, and gold medal winners and give them their laser-cut trophies sitting on the table there, which were made by Mr. Loveman. So, with no further ado, let's get rolling with our first speaker, Hie Louis. The speech is entitled, Gun Control. If not now, when?
On October 1st, 2017, Stephen Paddock sprayed gunfire on a crowd of 22,000 concertgoers from the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino. He killed 58 people, injured hundreds, and terrorized thousands. Investigators later discovered Paddock's collection of 47 total firearms. Just how Paddock amassed his large collection of high-powered weaponry is simple. There's no limit to how many guns one can own as long as they pass basic background checks. To make America safer, the United States needs to change its gun control laws and enforce stricter background checks. These acts are necessary in order to ensure a safer society in America. First, more gun control laws and background checks would reduce our homicide and suicide rates. There's a common refrain from politicians opposed to strengthening gun laws. They use lack of data as a fig leaf for their inaction. But in reality, the best research shows what common sense tells us, which is that more guns lead to more death and more crime. Almost 40,000 people were killed by guns in the United States in 2017. This is not surprising considering that the United States has more guns than any other nation in the world. Although studies have proven that countries with strict gun control laws and background checks have low homicide and suicide rates. In contrast, some believe that gun control laws, such as background checks, are an invasion of privacy. Invasion of privacy is indeed a valid point, but the benefits of having background checks clearly outweigh the cons. Background checks have been unmistakably shown to reduce gun violence. They are in fact designed to prevent access to guns by convicted felons and other prohibited possessors. The concept of keeping guns away from dangerous people is common sense, whether you're a lifetime member of the NRA or even if you're a pacifist. Lastly, one could say that by taking away the people's right to bear arms, the government is violating the Second Amendment. They say that owning a gun is a basic human right that the government shouldn't be able to take away. Although the Second Amendment was intended to protect the one's right to bear arms for their own protection. Unsurprisingly, studies have shown that guns are hardly ever used in self-defense nowadays. According to a Harvard University study, guns were only used to protect oneself in only 0.9% of crimes. The Second Amendment and even some of our current gun control laws were also made over 200 years ago. These laws may have been relevant then, but need to be revisited in order to reflect this generation and more to come. In conclusion, the United States clearly needs to change its gun control laws and enforce stricter background checks. It shouldn't be harder to make plans with friends than to buy a handgun. People must understand that gun control is not stripping them of their amended right and leaving them vulnerable, but protecting them. The government can't continue to just send thoughts and prayers after every shooting. We, the people, need real action and real change. To the United States government, I ask you to keep your thoughts and prayers to yourself and give us action to ensure the safety of not only us, but the future of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. Our next speaker is Evan Foster. Evan's speech is entitled BRI, a threat to the world.
There are many major global threats in the world, but the threat that I want to share with you today is a hidden one, cloaked in deception. China's Belt and Road Initiative, or the BRI. The BRI is a massive $1 trillion investment infrastructure program that is meant to connect China to 63 other countries, thereby boosting global trade. However, China's Belt and Road Initiative is a threat to the world. First, the BRI is actually a debt trap. The Chinese government is using debt financing to trick countries into bad deals, like a drug dealer who gets people hooked on drugs. The drug is money. In 2017, the government of Sri Lanka could not make payments on a loan they received from the Chinese government to build $1 billion port. China responded by forgiving the debt in exchange for a 99-year lease. China now owns a port in the Indian Ocean. Second, the BRI will lead to the acquisition and exploitation of the world's natural resources. Foreshadowing what is to come, in Tibet, China has already built hundreds of roads, railways, and airports, claiming the new infrastructure was to help improve the economy. However, a local Tibetan official said, conveniently, all the infrastructure was connected to haul our natural resources from Tibet. Now, many other countries around the world are already shipping their natural resources to China. China will certainly use the BRI to accelerate its control over the world's natural resources. Third, and most importantly, the Chinese government is willing to do anything it takes to gain and maintain power. In the past 30 years, China has killed more than 1 million Tibetans. In Tiananmen Square, thousands of innocent students were massacred. Now, the Chinese government believes that the 15 million Uyghur Turkic people who live in Xinjiang province are in the way of the BRI. China has decided that it is time to erase the Uyghur people. In the past 2 years, China has built more than 100 concentration camps, secretly imprisoning and torturing more than 1 million innocent people, including an Uyghur student who earned his PhD up the road at UH Manoa. Shockingly, furnaces have been built to burn the dead bodies. This is the largest mass incarceration of a minority people since Adolf Hitler. Shame on us, said US Rep. Tad Yoho. Shame on the free world to turn a blind eye. In 10 years, China is projected to overtake the United States, becoming the largest economy in the world. Do you really think a government that is willing to kill its own citizens in cold blood will care about the citizens of other countries? I would like to leave you with a plea from an Uyghur mother whose baby was killed as she was being tortured in a Chinese concentration camp. She recently told Congress, "Please help. My people look to the United States as a beacon of hope. It is the only country that can tell China to stop." Thank you.
Thank you, Evan. Our next speaker is Chloe DeVere. Chloe's speech is entitled Anti-Semitism. It's still here and getting worse.
Do you know the difference between a pizza and a Jew? A pizza doesn't scream in the oven. What about the difference between a Boy Scout and a Jew? A Boy Scout comes back from camp. These are just two examples of jokes that a kid told my brother at school while 20 other kids laughed. Mind you, this happened only last year. It's not just my brother, though. This is happening to Jewish kids all across the city, state, and country. It is called anti-Semitism, discrimination against Jews. Anti-Semitism has been around since the beginning of Jewish history. But after the Holocaust, shouldn't it be decreasing? I mean, we did say never again. No, it is not decreasing. And anti-Semitic incidents have actually increased in the US by 57% in 2017 from the previous year. This is the largest it has ever increased in 1 year since 1976. Anti-Semitism and hate in general, whether it be against Christians, Muslims, or anyone else, is a major problem that needs to end. White supremacists. Just by the name, you can probably tell that these people believe in white superiority. They are also people who, for whatever reason, dislike Jews and form groups like the neo-Nazis and the Ku Klux Klan. Recently, these groups have been more vocal about expressing their opinions by participating in riots and protests. As evidence, there was a greater than 250% increase in white supremacist action in 2017. In a riot 2 years ago in Charlottesville, Virginia, white supremacists said things like, "Kill all the Jews," and "Jews will not replace us." Of course, the First Amendment guarantees free speech, but how far is going too far? The actions of groups like the Ku Klux Klan and neo-Nazis give others ideas on ways they can express their opinions. For example, on October 27, 2018, a gunman shot 11 Jews while they were praying in the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I had to go to an active shooter training at my synagogue here in Hawaii because we had received a bomb threat and were scared for our safety. This is more than people just stating what they believe is right. This is terrorism, and America needs to realize that. It's not just white supremacists who are making this problem worse. Regular, everyday people, a big chunk being kids and college students, say anti-Semitic jokes like the ones a kid told my brother. And in 2017, anti-Semitic incidents in schools and colleges almost doubled since the year before. The sad thing is that a lot of times, kids say these jokes just to get attention or because they think they're funny, but they don't actually know how hurtful they can be. And even if kids don't say jokes out loud, just by laughing at someone who said one or two is just as bad. Even worse, this can escalate when kids interact with social media and eventually either join anti-Semitic groups online who target Jews or comment nasty things, which numbers of people see. Overall, it is not about kids making jokes that they think are funny. It is about them specifically belittling a minority by laughing about them. Even though anti-Semitism has been getting worse in the US, we can still erase the hate once and for all. I knew going into this that my speech wouldn't end anti-Semitism, but my hope is that I've made at least one person in this audience rethink saying Jewish jokes or anti-Semitic comments. One person who will say, "Hey, don't say that," when one of their friends does make an anti-Semitic joke. Our nation needs to learn not to discriminate because of someone's religion, not to discriminate because of someone's race, but most importantly, not to discriminate because a person's character and heart has far greater meaning than what they look like or choose to believe in. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ryan Blakely. The title of his speech is, "What Would You Do?"
Recently, my dad saw this lady standing outside of Whole Foods dining area, holding up a sign saying, "I'm hungry, please help." If you were sitting there, what would you do? Would you think that this has nothing to do with you? Would you care? If you were to come up to your table and ask for food, would you give her some? Would you give her money or a gift card? Or would you shoo her away like some pesky mosquito? Meeting homeless people tends to make us feel uncomfortable, but we should try to understand the reasons why people become homeless. In Hawaii, the number of homeless increased 19% over the past 10 years, fourth highest in the United States. You may think people who are homeless are there for bad reasons, like drugs, but they're most likely there for other reasons. 33% of homeless have a mental disability. 21% of them have abused drugs. The rest are homeless because of financial issues. For example, all of their money went into unexpected medical bills, or they lost their job. This means about 80% of homeless are in this situation due to circumstances not totally in their control. Since it causes so many problems for our society, I think we need to do more to help them. The biggest source of income in our state is tourism. Imagine if you're a tourist coming on vacation to our islands, and one of the first things you see driving to Waikiki is the homeless encampment in Kaka'ako. What would you think of this place? Would you think that it is safe and beautiful? I think not. Also, businesses can be affected a lot. For example, the Children's Discovery Center, a place most of us enjoyed when we were younger, is currently being threatened by the homeless surrounding it due to the high crime rate that it brings. Parents feel uncomfortable bringing their children there. The park and sidewalks are littered with trash, and the public restrooms have been vandalized. You may question, why should we be helping these people? They're drug addicts and alcoholics. I work hard for my money. Why should I give it away? You may not want to help the 20% who are drug addicts, but what about the other 80% there for other reasons? In my opinion, it is the correct, moral thing to do. We live in nice houses, go to a great school, and have plenty of food and water. Does it seem fair that homeless kids are living without the things that we have? Does it seem like this is a just society? We are the richest country in the world. We should be able to solve this problem. As students, I think we can help. Whether it be giving your time, money, or even just your compassion, there are ways for an individual to contribute. For example, when I was in elementary school, I led a slipper drive. I collected slippers, sent them to an organization that gives them to homeless kids who go to school without footwear. My mom carries around $5 McDonald's gift cards to give to homeless people who are hungry. They're able to buy a meal, but not buy anything to fuel an addiction. Even just overcoming your discomfort to say hello and make eye contact can make a homeless person feel that they are seen. So, let me ask you now, what would you do if you saw that lady standing outside of Whole Foods asking for food? Would you be that guy who thinks, this does not concern me, so I don't have to do anything about it? Or would you want to help in even the slightest of ways? What would you do? Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Next up is Eleanor Howell. Her speech is entitled, The Lifeblood of Our Nation.
eBay, Yahoo, Nordstrom, and Google. What do these American companies have in common, besides earning billions of dollars annually? They were all started or co-founded by immigrants, the lifeblood of our nation. Yet not everyone understands their importance. President Trump has advocated a border wall and enacted a comprehensive travel ban. But immigrants strengthen our nation, and we depend on them to survive and flourish. Immigrants founded more than half of America's billion-dollar companies and are more than twice as likely as US-born people to create businesses exhibiting innovation, rapid growth, and higher survival rates. We must reform our immigration laws for America to thrive. Immigrants, who are generally younger, have higher birth rates, and are more likely to work, offset financial and labor shortfalls caused by aging retirees. They simultaneously fill the labor gap, create jobs, and improve our economy by financing Social Security. In 2007, immigrant-run small businesses alone provided about 4.7 million jobs, and as of 2012, made more than $776 billion annually. Also, all working immigrants pay taxes. Undocumented workers alone pay about $11.6 billion annually. The U.S. is a worldwide beacon of hope and has a humanitarian duty to help suffering people. Many Central American migrants are fleeing for their lives because of rape, forced criminal recruitment, and death. Doctors Without Borders reports these areas experience unprecedented levels of violence outside a war zone, that citizens are murdered with impunity, kidnappings and extortion are daily occurrences. However, the US government argues these victims technically aren't refugees, so we don't offer asylum. Instead, we deport them, blind to the 83 deportees since 2014 murdered in their home country after their return. How many innocent lives could the US save if we altered immigration laws? Despite our zero-tolerance border policy, many still attempt crossing. Why? Their only options are immigration or death. Carmen and her family fled San Salvador because a gang member threatened to kill her if she didn't date him. Even if she is deported, she said, "If my children can stay in the US, I have hope that I will be able to see them again. In my country, the only thing that awaits me is death." As a global and moral leader, how can the US turn away humans fleeing assault, murder, and worse? Also, evidence refutes immigrants cause terrorism. From 2002 to 2016, only one terrorist entered our country per every 29 million visas or status approvals, and 99% of murders by them happened during 9/11, where attackers were not immigrants. Here's the truth. Immigrants improve our economy, enrich society, and elevate our nation's character. To progress, we must replace our current policies with laws allowing more to legally enter our country. We must end detention and deportation. We must sustain the generations of people who positively transform our country. Only when immigration laws are reformed will America prosper. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Next is Selena Lim. The speech title is, "But I Thought You Were Asian."
What'd you get on the test? I bet she got an A+. She's Asian. What is your definition of an Asian? A person who's quiet, studies a lot, and plays a musical instrument? I'm not saying that none of these are true, but everyone classifies me as a stereotypical Asian. In my brief 13 years, I've heard plenty of comments like, "You can speak English?" or "You must be good at the cello." None of those comments really hit me hard personally, but to many people, then cut deeply, which is why Asian stereotypes should be addressed in school. We are told not to stereotype religions, sexualities, and genders. Ironically enough, we are also told not to stereotype against race. Then why is it okay to stereotype Asians? People say that Asians are immigrants, smart, and musical. Though some might wonder, what's wrong with that? Simply put, it's discrimination. Approximately 30% of Asian Americans have reported that they had endured discrimination. According to author Brando Starkey, this is the highest reporting percentage of any racial group. African Americans were second at 26%. Social and emotional issues are one negative outcome of Asian stereotypes. It can put too much academic pressure on Asian students, make them rebel, and limits their personal expression of who they truly are. And one of the worst, low self-esteem. A survey by Gerald Bachman measuring self-esteem in 8 to 12th grade students shows that African American students score highest, Caucasians score slightly higher than Hispanics, and Asian Americans score lowest. People may say that Asian stereotypes are just a joke, or that we should be thankful for the compliments. But all it does is put unnecessary pressure on Asian students. At the 2016 Oscar Awards, comedian Chris Rock had 3 Asian kids holding briefcases come out on stage, and he said, "They sent us their most dedicated, accurate, and hard-working representatives. I want you to please welcome Ming Ju, Bao Ling, and David Moskowitz." He went on to say, "If anyone is upset about this joke, just tweet about it on your phone, which was also made by these kids." It was meant as a joke, but came at the expense of an entire race. When it comes to college acceptance, these jokes are no laughing matter. According to Vox.com, Harvard admissions have made comments like, "Oh, typical Asian student wants to be a doctor? Nothing special here." That's hard for me to swallow, as a student who does want to be a doctor. Not because I'm Asian, but because I love working with kids. Although the stereotypes are often meant playfully and as a joke, Asians are any other race and should be treated as such. Some people don't live up to the Asian stereotypes, but are still teased about being an Asian. And those who do live up to the stereotypes can't win either. When they fulfill a stereotype, they don't get credit for the effort put in. Their success solidifies the stereotype in people's minds. As Elie Wiesel, a Holocaust survivor, said, "No human race is superior. No religious faith is inferior. All collective judgments are wrong. Only racists make them." Thank you.
Thank you, Selena. Taylor O'Gata. The speech title is Girl Push-Ups.
I can do a push-up. Now, I know many of you can too, and I'm not trying to brag. I say this because there are labels being put on our physical capabilities. Recently, my coach told the boys in class to do push-ups and told the girls to do girl push-ups. While in general, males are biologically stronger than females, that doesn't mean females are weak or incapable. It's labeling like girl push-ups that can be limiting and damaging to the psyche of young girls. We need to change our mindsets and believe that women are capable of being stronger than they think and can be as fundamentally capable as men. We need to create a different definition of what a woman should be. Girls are weak and boys are strong. This harmful gender stereotype is what's being subconsciously communicated to our young generations. It limits girls' potential and deteriorates their self-confidence, which ultimately results in them falling into the misguided ideas of society. Gassel Foundation says that by the age of 14, girls drop out of sports twice as often as boys do because they believe they are not physically capable of being as strong. Additionally, what doesn't help are our verbal cues. When girls are told they throw like a girl, or when boys are told they are not man enough, they learn how they are expected to be in life. This makes girls think that throwing like a girl is an insult, and it pressures boys into thinking they need to be better than girls. Society's labeling has the potential of being a self-fulfilling prophecy. We might not realize it, but when a girl declines trying out for the water polo or basketball or wrestling team, she is feeding into the flawed ideas and creating a legacy, one filled with limitations rather than opportunity. Though there is a way to dislodge this damaging stereotype, and that's by removing society's labels and disconnecting from the comparison in its current meaning. For example, we can change the entire definition of the term girl push-up by creating an empowering movement where girls push each other up and rise to the occasion. As the Always advertisement campaign of Like a Girl states, girls, yes, we kick like a girl and swim like a girl and walk like a girl and wake up in the morning like a girl because we are girls, and that's not something we should be ashamed of. Girls, if there's an activity you're hesitant about trying because of the gender stereotype, I encourage you to dive straight into it, no matter how scary it is, or no matter how much you are declining society's expectation of who you are supposed to be. Because in doing so, you take away its power, and your display of individuality and bravery can give other girls permission to do the same. And boys, I encourage you to stop, watch, and learn. Girls and boys are physically different, and there is much to be learned by watching and respecting each other. I have a desire to change this definition, and I want you to embrace this change as well. Times are changing, and companies are putting effort into changing the traditional stereotype. This year, for the first time since its creation, Big League Chew Gum displayed a female athlete on its packaging. We should continue to follow the leads of companies and change society's mindset of girls. After all, what is the point of saying girls are weak and boys are strong? We are just creating more confusion when the simplest answer is we are all humans. Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor. Our final speaker this morning, Skylar Chen. The speech is entitled, End the Silence, Stop Sexual Violence.
At age 9, a woman named Cheryl Cloyd Robbins became a victim of sexual violence. One day, she was taking the bus home from school, but once she was the last person on the bus, her bus driver sexually assaulted her. This incident led her to have anxiety, depression, panic attacks, suicidal thoughts. and left a horrifying memory engraved in her mind forever. The sad but true reality of our society is that many people have been through a similar experience as her. Sexual violence is a scary topic, and it can be uncomfortable to talk about or even just say, but it needs to be acknowledged more. Sexual violence has become too common, and more should be done about it. So what exactly is sexual violence? It is defined as a sexual act committed against someone without their freely giving consent. The line, freely giving consent, is an important concept to understand. Consent is permission and agreement. As the saying goes, no means no. Rape, sexual assault, and sexual abuse all fall under the category of what is considered to be sexual violence. And sexual violence is not something that discriminates against any races or any genders. It can happen to anyone, anywhere. Sexual violence is something we should care about because it is so common in our world today. Approximately 1 in 5 women and 1 in 71 men will be raped at some point in their lifetime, and there's around 321,500 cases of sexual assault each year in the United States alone. All these victims may also face terrible after effects. 94% of women who are raped experience symptoms of PTSD, and many victims also experience depression, poor health, anxiety, and more. And not only are victims affected in terrible ways, their communities and loved ones are as well. Imagine if someone you knew, a family member or a friend, was a victim of sexual violence. It can be hard to understand what they are going through, and it can be hard to know how to help. And in some cases, the victim won't even speak out about what has just happened to them. Sexual violence even affects entire nations. Rape costs the US more than any other crime, at $127 billion per year. So even those who do not have a direct association to it are affected by it in one way or another. Although it is such a prevalent problem, there are still ways that we can fix it. We should educate the public more about sexual violence by promoting social norms that protect against it, or by teaching about empowerment and how to speak out. We should also create safer environments for everyone by establishing workplace rules and policies that don't discriminate against victims, or by improving the safety and monitoring in public spaces. And last, but certainly not least, we should help and support victims by providing them with the treatments and services they may need in order to heal. Because going through something as traumatic as sexual violence can be hard, and we should do all that we can to help those who have dealt with it. There are many misconceptions about sexual violence, but one of the most common is that the victim is to blame. Why should we help the victim when it was her fault? She was asking for it. This phrase is wrong and should not be said, because no matter how someone dresses or even how they may act, they should not be blamed for being a victim. The very definition of sexual violence says that it is not consensual. So how can the victim ever really ask for it? Instead of tearing victims down, we should empower and help them. Although sexual violence is such a complex problem, and there is not one way we can entirely stop it, if we acted upon these solutions, we could come to a better future. A better, safer future for everyone, where stories like Cheryl's wouldn't be something we saw and heard about all the time. We should no longer be afraid of sexual violence as an issue. We need to acknowledge it and do more. Now is the time, and will always be the time, to end the silence and stand up to sexual violence. Thank you.
Wow, the judges are going to have a difficult time with that one. They're all so good. Well, let me review for you what they said. Let's see. Gia spoke about the danger, he had spoke about gun control. And Evan Foster spoke about the danger of China's Belt and Road Initiative. Chloe talked about anti-Semitism, a growing problem in this country. Ryan talked about helping the homeless. Eleanor talked about the value of immigrants to America. Selena spoke about stereotypes of Asians. Taylor talked about redefining society's definition of girls and women. And Skylar just told us about stopping sexual violence. So it's probably going to take the judges about 5 minutes or so. Why don't you talk with the kids around you and see if you guys can figure out the top 3. See if you can get it, all right? All right, we totaled up all the points. And taking the bronze medal, Hie Louis. Taking the silver medal, Eleanor Cowell. And taking the gold medal, Chloe DeVere. All right, thank you, everybody. Assembly is dismissed, and speakers stick around for the yearbook photos. Thank you.